Hello everybody. Welcome. It's a muggy, warmish September 10th day here in San Francisco. I'm out for a walk. I am surprisingly still capable of having a walk. I like to hope that I will have many more. But I don't know, so I take this one as maybe the only one. In a way, each of our experiences is entirely new to us. There's an aspect of our interiority which is profoundly buried in the refuse of habit, knowledge, concepts, ideas, ontologies, and the despair of living in cultures that are lethally misguided. Every human being knows in their heart that the things we call governments and societies and corporations, these are a complex mimetic engine of doom that despises human beings and despises life on earth, but wears a costume of the helpful, convenient provider. Yeah. You know, children, when they're very young and they discover what the adults are actually doing, their hearts recoil. We talk about childhood trauma, and usually we mean things like, abuse or neglect. But nobody really talks about the childhood trauma of being exposed. Having the actual character of your species and the societies slowly divulged, right? Bit by bit, the layers are penetrated by awareness of the child trying to understand and believing in the goodness of the people and the adults and so forth, but discovering on their own and through relation with peers and media what's actually going on. And it's a system of, death camps. And this trauma, right? We focus on the abuse and neglect if we try to treat the child or the adult that emerges from the chrysalis of childhood. And we point the finger at the bad people, and they may well have been quite bad. But none of them could possibly hold a candle to the standing scions of atrocity that masquerade as good, true, beautiful protectors that we exist in the death grip of throughout our lives. And we may manage to find a place in the systems where we can be at least modestly human, or try to recover what that might actually mean if it weren't so catastrophically overburdened with lies and terror, hatred, killing, torment, and luxury. So the other night, A couple of insights came to me that I wanted to talk about today. There's recently been a congressional hearing on the topic of UFOs and UAP, which, is a kind of a catch-all. If the A stands for anomalous, because it basically this encompasses all non-ordinary phenomena, right? Everything that doesn't match our expectations, what we've been told, what we tell each other, all of these things. A man was just squinting at me. So funny. Reminds me of someone I care very deeply for. And the troubled history of our relations and communications, and recent developments in that direction that are as startling as they are confused. I made my work on Facebook has been very thoroughly, I suspect, I have good reason to suspect, that it's been very thoroughly shadow banned. Right. My posts used to get hundreds of views. Now if they get one or two, it's surprising. And as the quality of my posts rose, the reach declined. I don't know how to make sense of that. It's okay with me, the algorithms and the corporations that run them. It's surprising what they popularize and what they inhibit. But the other night, I was thinking about the specific linkage, because I had heard a couple of interviews or comments by men who had worked at nuclear installations, primary missile base. What is the name of the place? I mean, we know some of the names, right? Malmstrom. But I think there's a place in California. The name is escaping me at the moment. But I've heard people talk about what took place for many, many years. I've been quite attentive to the UFO phenomena since childhood. And as I am nearly 62 now, we're talking, a good 50 years of paying pretty close attention to what I could find out about it. Of course, I always hoped I might be among the cursed or blessed who encounter directly. What I was really hoping for wasn't just to see something. I wanted to be able to converse with whatever might be generating the phenomena. And in 2002, a goodly portion of my desire came true. But like many wishes, rather than being granted, you ask for like a birthday cake and you're given something like, well, what we're going to do is we're going to wind you into the entire history of baking goods on Earth. And then, we're going to take you to the celestial bakery where stars and worlds are born. And then, and it just keeps going on, right? So yeah, for me, and I don't know precisely what to make of it. I don't know precisely what to make of the fact that I have a hand. We seem to think that simple explanations in language about phenomenal experience are somehow sufficient or appropriate or They are not. Some few humans may have attempted, in great ardor, passion, and skillfulness, to sing the praises of a kiss, their first kiss or the most important kiss in their life. And, a couple of them got close. The rest of those people, nothing resembling it. Try to describe an incredible meal, and all you can really say is, oh, it was amazing. It ruined my expectation set. It destroyed me for future meals. And yeah, I've had a few experiences of being wrecked in this way, but whatever it was that took place in 2002, and then a similar event in late 2009, which was different. It ruined me. It destroyed everything I had ever thought, believed, ascertained, deduced, induced, speculated upon. I don't know, it was sort of like being really curious about matches my entire life, and then becoming a volcano or even the sun. So, what do I make of all of that? Well, depends on who I'm exploring it with or why I'm looking into it. But the other night, I was thinking, about all of these events where UFOs have shown up at nuclear sites or near vessels carrying nuclear weapons, or in situations where nuclear material is being transported. And sometimes they appear to have shut down nuclear weapons. We've heard nonsense that these were like EMP hazing tests and shit. This is a bunch of garbage. If somebody detonated an EMP, you'd have damage to the ICBMs. It wouldn't shut them down, obliterate the circuit boards and other features, even if they were hardened. So there'd be physical evidence if these were EMP events. However, the character of the UFO phenomena often lends itself to similarities with EMP-like phenomena. I remember one of the guys who was at a missile base talking about a huge black triangle, hovered over him for 2 minutes. His phone got super hot. It shut down when he was... Good morning, good to see you.
You too.
And when it departed, there was, he said, this was in the hearing yesterday actually, he said that there was a scent, like the scent of a lightning storm, right? I think, we don't know exactly what all these scents are. But we have words for them like ozone, right? I don't know if the scent is ozone. I think it's a very complex and probably overdetermined thing. And just for those of you who don't know what overdetermination is, it's a super important idea. So in science, overdetermination is when you have a phenomena that you're examining, and you're looking at 3 to 9 variables or more, and you're trying to figure out what causes this phenomena temporally, like what gives rise to the phenomena. But the problem is that humans like single-valued answers. Oh, it's this, right? It's never that. In very, very simple situations, we could argue that the flame of the gas stove, when lit beneath a pot of boiling, water leads to boiling. Okay. But think about, where does the gas come from? How does it get in the house? There's, what is fire? What does boiling mean? So overdetermination is when you have a phenomena that you're examining and you're looking at some variables, but problematically, all of the variables appear to be involved, but any one of them is sufficient to generate the phenomena by itself. So this is what's called overdetermination. And the principle is profoundly important in skillful use of the mind when we are thinking, which is a very dangerous thing. I recommend you mostly avoid it, about causality. Yeah. Now, thinking itself is extremely dangerous because invisibly to us, we go from having like 19 wings, 7 anti-gravity devices, 9 kinds of dreaming, 50 spirits of insight. We go from all of that, we just collapse that down to the tip of the pinky finger. And we're like, yeah, I know exactly what's happening here. I got it figured out. Well, let me clue you in about something. Explanation is the death of insight. Right? Insight obliterates explanations. It just ruins them, lays them to waste. And in nearly every case, explanations can be helpful, useful, and so forth. What you want is insight. So thinking is about descriptions and explanations, which are a flattening of the perceptible space. Yeah? God, I can feel a little bit of Amon Hillman possessing part of my mind. Oh, God. Gorgeous. It's beautiful. Fabulous. Yeah. That guy's brilliant lilt is so hilarious. And powerful, right? He's very charismatic.
All right, I'm going to put you right here on this bench, and I will set you up.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Hi. We got some noise going on here, so. Yeah, insight is mostly what you want. I think, now of course I don't much trust this, but I saw a meme about Rumi, and he was saying something that I'll paraphrase as as best I can, which is, give your intellect to the friend. Don't keep it for yourself. Give it to the friend and all of its fruits and beauties, its depths and origins will never depart you. And, this is a kind of a Islamic, like pseudo-Islamic or pre-Islamic or Sufistic understanding of what it was, I think, that came into my mind and was my teacher and the great danger to my well-being in 2002. This friend, right? If somebody said to me, so what do you think it was? If I was a child, I would say it was the friend. And they said, what do you mean, the friend? There are only individual friends. No, it's the friend. In any case, I'm wandering afield here, as I often do. I'm bird walking. So perhaps I should attempt to get back to something resembling the central thread here. UFOs and nuclear installations, and why this topic is classified above top secret, above nuclear secrets, above everything. This topic is, touch this, you die. We will shut you off. In human societies, governments, military organizations, and cultures. So we're going to get to some insight here, I think. This is the most secret of secret topics. There are some other secret topics that are very profound, and the non-ordinary itself, its existence, its nature, one has to wonder in catastrophic awe, what lies under the Vatican? What is down there? You must have objects so powerful they could shift the course of human history. Right? You're talking about things that you touch them once and you die, or you touch them once and you're resurrected. I mean, who knows? None of us know, but there is a storehouse of objects that the church has collected to ensure that nothing can threaten their dominance, authority, the narratives that underlie the Catholic faith. They probably have objects directly from non-human intelligences, both extraterrestrial, trans-terrestrial, intraterrestrial, I mean, you name it. I can imagine people saying, I've never seen it, there's nothing like that. Yeah, good luck, buddy. It's like someone who's never found objective proof of love saying there is no such thing. They also don't believe that kissing exists because they've never done one. Right? So it's just they've seen other people emulate. I think they're just playing a game. I don't know what that is. So, imagine you're a species, right? You're like the human species, yeah. And for a long period of time, you have stories about the sky not ignoring the humans. But for a long period of time, the sky doesn't seem to be paying much attention to your species. They don't send emissaries. They do, but not in very, how to put this, like out front, right? Obvious, here, look, we are here, kind of way. So you're a species and the sky mostly ignores you. Now, here's the thing. People ask questions all the time that are dumb questions. Obviously, they're not trying to find out something. They're not asking this question because they're curious or they're trying to understand something. They're asking the question to dismiss something. Right? Their purpose is to dismiss. So they say, like, why haven't they just landed on the White House lawn? Why don't the non-ordinary intelligences just come and say hello to the humans? Well, here's the problem. The White House is the metastatic center of an array of cancers so lethal, misguided, disoriented, greedy, aggressive, arrogant, hubristic, that if you go to the scions of human societies, if you go to the governments or you go to the military, which these are the problems, right? You go there and you talk to those people, what they're going to do is weaponize everything they can possibly learn from you. And what they're going to try to do is then achieve the holy grail of, military motivation, which is asymmetric military advantage, right? I can do something my, quote, enemies can't do. I mean, this is like your pinky finger trying to attack your own hand, and becoming really skillful at this over time, and just continuing this process at the cost of every other opportunity that is conceivable. So it's fairly obvious why, I mean, not to mention non-interference and so forth, right? Let the children grow as they do. But yeah, you don't, if you want to, if you want to attempt to help the humans, right? What you don't do, obviously, is you don't go to false human collectives. You don't go to like cartels in South America and go like, hey, buddy, you're doing really great here, killing all those people and selling all those drugs. We can help you out. That's not what you do, right? You don't go to the bad. You don't go to the poison. You don't go talk to the cancer. You talk to children. You talk to parents. You talk to ordinary human beings who might be capable of listening to you without the intent to weaponize what you show them. So this is one reason why. There are 50, 1,000 probably, but there's lots of reasons why they don't just show up en masse. However, that may be about to change, as we will soon see. So you're a species, the sky mostly ignores you, right? You've become technological over the past couple thousand years, a few thousand years. And now you're building machines, and now your weapons of destruction can destroy, a lot. But up until, 1940s-ish, when the United States, and if it wasn't us, it would have been someone else, we must imagine, because the race for asymmetric military advantage continues to this day, and has turned, although most are unaware of this, though the physical weapons are still crucially important, things that go boom and obliterate entire lineages of beings, not just the humans, everything that lives in some place, right? It takes the complexity level from 10,000 down to 2 in about half a second, right? The living complexity of a place, you detonate a weapon there, all of the complex organisms are shattered. Just burnt, shattered, exploded, destroyed. Nothing, there's no species on Earth that would do anything like this. I was talking about evil the other day with a friend, and she was like, yeah, but what about like cancer and parasites and all those terrible things that isn't evil just using the life energy of other beings selfishly for your own development? And I thought about this for a moment. Like, this is a question that has deeply oriented me, and maybe part of the reason why I had the experience. Because as a child, I swore I would remember and somehow speak later as an adult. And how catastrophically I have failed, yet how catastrophically I have succeeded, too. In any case, the evil. So then I just said, well, so what's the worst parasite you've ever seen? And there was some talk about the fungus that takes over the ants, and there was, cancer and horrifying biological parasites, the fish mouth parasite that I highlight in my thrisp recordings, that just eats out the tongue and sort of becomes the fish's, false tongue, which is so metaphorically profound in terms of language and humans, and thrisps. So we talked about some really bad parasites. And look, that's if you study parasites, like, it's kind of gross. I think she mentioned I love the wasps. Oh my God. She mentioned the wasps, and By the way, you know, when people talk about praying mantis beings and stuff, they're ignoring the whole Vespula, the Hymenoptera in general. They think praying mantises have heads like that, but all of Hymenoptera have heads like that. These are the bees, the ants, the wasps. So, where did it go? Oh yeah, we went. She talked about the wasps that paralyze prey, and then, you know, take them into their hatcheries, and the children eat the insects while they're still alive, so forth. And my reply was, okay, I get that parasites are, I mean, there's you know, I had some explanatory intelligence about all these matters. You need something like parasites. You need something like red snake in my toys. Or you can't have a universe, actually. You need a very fierce, kind of militaristic, colonizing aspect to life for there to be life at all. It's just one of its aspects. But what I said was, so, okay, you're really concerned about all these parasites and the terrible things they do to organisms. But what about humans? I mean, don't you think we're the meta-parasite? We're blatantly omnicidal. Is there any parasite that attacks every single form of life on Earth other than humans? No? Huh. So we must be the meta-parasite, or either that, or we've been infected with something, right? We've been compromised at a core level, recursively over time, like waves of infective colonization, recolonizing ourselves with this thing, which I call thrisps, which could be understood as the natural repercussions of a defect in the mimula, which is the connective tissue in cognitia, networks of minds and bodies in time-space. So, you know, I was like, well, don't you think, you know, what do you think about the humans? I mean, look at what we do to every life form on Earth, without any concern, not even to sustain our lives, but just to sustain lives, right? At least the parasites are doing something true, right? They're raising their children. They're evolving their lineages, and all of those lineages are historically crucial to the nature and diversity of life on our planet. So they're doing something that actually has a good result. It serves all beings. What are we doing? We're just a giant two-legged, you know, collective meta-parasite that is omnicidal in its nearly every activity, without the slightest concern at the species level or in corporations or governments for anything that lives, right? And the corporations and the governments pretend they're concerned until it comes time to reduce, you know, like profit or power or something. And then it's very clear they never were. I mean, how could they be concerned? They're not beings. They're a weird kind of process, yeah, that captures living beings and then deploys them against the history, origins, and future of life on Earth. We must recognize this together, all of us, all humans. Like, there's nothing as lethally deadly to our people, our history, our future, our planet, as these systems that have captured our species. So we are the meta-parasite on this planet. We don't have to be. There's 9 billion other ways we could be alive. Right? So this isn't human nature, right? This is a problem that has a history, just like a disease is a problem that has a history. So anyway, you're a species, and you know, you've been doing your technological thing, and mostly The sky ignores you. Until, I don't know exactly what the year was. I think it was 47 when we detonated the first nuclear weapon in the deserts of Nevada. It's a perfect example of race to the bottom, multipolar traps discussed by the brilliant Daniel Schmachtenberger and other, Zach Stein and others of the IDW, right, the intellectual dark web. Now I want you to think really carefully with me for a moment about what happens when you detonate a bomb in general. Right? The first thing is sudden catastrophic loss of biorelational complexity over some space, usually a fairly large space. I mean, that's the goal, right? Kill all the beings. Just, arbitrarily obliterate them. It's kind of a biblical thing, right? Like, we will erase not merely your bodies, but your history, your future. Every insect will die. Right? We're not going to bomb you back to the Stone Age. We're going to bomb you back to the fucking pre-life status of your planet. What we call conventional weapons are absolutely terrifying, and there's lots of them. And you have everything from biological gases and poisons and nerve toxins and whatever, right? Bullets and knives, all this stuff. But when you detonate a nuclear weapon, that's a different fucking thing. Right? Now you've decided, the aura of destruction shall not be limited to, 10 city blocks or, right, 5, 1. Now we're going to destroy like a 50-mile radius, and we're going to obliterate the entire history and future of life in that place. And we're going to put lethal radioactivity into microscopic particles that go everywhere forever. So the killing doesn't stop anywhere near, like it's a temporal problem now, right? You're not just setting off a bomb in space, you're setting off a bomb in time. So the humans are like, this is a really bad idea, we shouldn't do this. And at the same time, they're like, yeah, but if we don't, they will. So the good guys have to get the worst, or the better people have to get the most powerful weapon first. Anyway, so we blow this thing up. And it turns out that Dr. Beatriz Villarreal, in examining plates from Palomar around these dates, finds light transients, right? Things that look like patterns of stars in the sky, but they're not stars. And UFOs show up all over the place, within 24 hours, probably before too, since some of those things can see into time or even into minds. So UFOs show up, and probably there was some kind of an exchange between some form of non-human intelligence and military and or government officials around this time. And I can imagine the conversation going something like, what are you doing? And the human's like, we're blowing stuff up, man. Yeah, it's awesome. Power of Shiva. right here in our palm of our hands. Yeah, fabulous. And aliens are like, are you batshit out of your fucking minds? Why do you think we're here? You think we're here to celebrate your discovery of nuclear weapons? You can imagine the discussions that go on, but the point is this. So you're a species, this guy doesn't pay attention to you. You do something unimaginably stupid that no organism would ever conceive of doing if it were in any way oriented. And then the sky pays attention to you, right? Like suddenly, out of nowhere, wow, boom. And so, the basic message is don't do that. That's a dumb thing that is a threat to the existence of minds in all of time. We're not going to let you do that. And the human's like, yeah, okay, well, we really like these bombs, so thanks for stopping by. We're not going to mention this conversation to any of the human people, right? Because if we do that, then they're going to tell us, okay, you got to stop making bombs. So the fundamental reason why this topic is secret is directly related to two things. The obliteration of the biodiversity of Earth by the processes that have captured millions or billions of humans, and the development of weapons that should never exist and are a threat to the entire fabric of time-space, not just little places on Earth. The humans think, the Earth is a separate thing. Are there any separate things in nature? Have you seen even one? Any separate things? No. Like, nature is a communal endeavor. So, if on one planet in time-space you start doing something like this, the effects are immediate on other planets because they're linked in a kind of network that doesn't need to concern itself with distance at all. It's sort of like a central orienting signal that is instantaneous and wave-like and transmitted between all living worlds. So, when we detonated a nuke on Earth, living worlds all over time-space woke up and went like, hey, what the fuck are those idiots doing over there? And then shit showed up in the sky, and we were like, yeah, well, thanks. It's really exciting to meet you, but we really like weapons and devastation, omnicide, hatred, fear, right? We like ruining things. So you see, there's a link here between the sky showing up and going like, don't do that, and the secrecy. Because if it were revealed that beings from elsewhere showed up when we detonated nukes, the obvious message is don't do that. It doesn't even matter if they spoke or telepathically communicated with government or military officials, which they surely did. Right? All kinds of reports of this happening all over the place. When humans encounter aliens, quote unquote, almost invariably you hear two messages, right? Don't become a threat to the organs that generate your people and your planet right now. One, right? Environmental omnicide, don't do that. You need to do any other thing, not that. And then the other thing is like, can you guys stop making weapons out of the features you've discovered of time-space? Like, physics is not there for you to figure out how to operationalize it to obliterate the origins, character, heart, beauty, divinity, and purposive intelligence of time-space. It's not what physics is for. So you can see that this would have to be classified, especially if we intend to continue just making world-ending weapons and obliterating, the ecologies of our planet. You can't go around telling people that, well, shit, we blew up this bomb, and then people from elsewhere came, and they were like, you guys need to stop doing this. They certainly weren't here to celebrate our accomplishment. Let's make that absolutely clear. I mean, that's fucking as obvious as it could be. So, you know, the answer of our government and our military to the incursions from the sky is, you know, thanks for stopping by, but we really like bombs. In fact, we like bombs best. We want bombs, you know, we'll take bombs over anything that you might offer us. And, you know, we've heard stories too, and it doesn't really matter so much whether the stories we've heard, I have read, reports, accounts, and so forth, which certainly can be invented, but it doesn't matter if they were invented, because where were they invented from? Time, space, right? Humans can't actually just make shit up, although there is a feature of linguistic and conceptual cognition that does shit like this. And most often it's that feature that likes to complain about anecdotal evidence. But we've heard stories that beings from elsewhere came to government officials and said something resembling, you know, you can have a post-scarcity world right now. You know, you can have free energy. You can have end of disease. You can have the utopian dreams of your people. We'll give you what you need to make this happen. But you got to stop the war thing. And apparently the response was, at least in this anecdote, it resembled, oh yeah, but we're kind of really into this oil and gas and war stuff, and that'll fuck up our economy. Your economy? What? So in other words, we want for there to be metastatic, cancerous, lethal fucking agendas in the humans that manage and govern and enslave and torture and violate and ruin our world for no reason, because here's the key to everything you've ever hoped for on the left hand. But on the right hand is just like, nah, we like it the way it is, right? What would happen to our banking system? Yeah? What would happen to the seething library of, lying, power-grubbing tormentors that rule over our people, thinking themselves elite or, justifiably authorized? What about all those bad people, right, that are doing horrible things all day long, every day, doing gain of function research on this shit so that it just becomes more occluded, more vicious, more effective, more entrapping, 1,000 times a second. So we're just doing gain of function research on the feature of cognition that has captured our species. So you better make that shit secret, right? If anything like that ever happened, and you told the people, well, we decided that the banks and the military and the corporations must persist at all costs, at every possible cost. I don't think the people would be cheerful about that. I don't think any human being who's actually still human would be like, yeah, we want that banking shit. We want that war. Give us that disease, that torment. Yeah, give us people empowered to obliterate everything. Hi. Yeah, every child on Earth would raise his hand and go fuck off. Right? Get rid of those fuckers. Put them on an island, let them do what they want to themselves somewhere they can't hurt. Put them on the moon, right? It's already dead. They can't really fuck that up. and tell them that if they ever come near here again, we'll wipe them off the fucking moonscape. So this is part of the reason of the secrecy, right? The secrecy also relates to military, technological, economic supremacy, but mainly it goes back to this problem where at a certain point in our technological development, beings from elsewhere showed up and said, like, up with this, we will not put. And we were like, yeah, okay, fuck off. We like bombs. We like ruining the history and future of life on Earth. And given the opportunity, we'd like to export that to the entirety of space-time. There is no being anywhere in time-space that would allow a disease like that off its planet. They would make very fucking sure you don't get access to time-space by every means at their disposal. And the means at their disposal are unimaginably sophisticated, ancient, profound, diverse. They're nothing like human means. They don't need weapons. Mostly they don't need weapons. I'm not saying they don't have something that resembles a weapon. And actually, you just, if you are a being that lives in a context that is multidimensional, probably you have techniques, right? Techni, not necessarily machines, that allow you to reorient fundamental forces. Gravity, time, light, biology, cognition, mind space, all these things. Yeah. This is obvious, right? UFOs come, the humans hear their minds before they see the beings, right? They're like, they can hear their minds before they see the craft, often. And the beings almost never speak with their mouths. They speak with their minds. Our minds hear them. Why? Well, it's not telepathy. Like, that whole idea is wrong. It's much more fundamental than that. Minds are a network phenomena. It should be obvious. And so if your body lives in the network of minds and you meet a creature whose body lives in the network of bodies, right, of animals, then when you show up, you don't have to talk. Humans don't have to talk either, probably for vast epochs of our developmental history. There was no talking, not because we couldn't speak, but because there was no need to do so. Our minds were intimately linked into unities that could communicate instantaneously across distances. The technologies we developed as that feature of our humanity collapsed are things like the telegraph and radio and television, internet. These are all attempts to simulate what was lost. So is AI. Because our people once had access to the network from which our minds arise directly. We still do. We're just very confused about this matter in a way that cruelly delimits our capacity to resurrect it. In my conversation with my friend, I said, that fungus that takes over the mind of an ant so that it no longer returns to the colony and uses the ant to propagate its lineages, right? It's a parasitic fungus. Cordyceps is one such fungus. I think there are others. And cordyceps has, profound medicinal properties, apparently. Probably damn near every organism's sophisticated chemical exudates are like this. They're all medicinal. There's no non-medicinal stuff in nature. Of course, how we use it determines its medicinality, whether it's a poison, a weapon, so forth. our species is like this ant. We are a dead species walking. We are infected with thrisps. I mean, there's other ways to think about it that are useful. You can call them memes or mind viruses. Although thrisps are more like complex animals than they are like a virus, right? The thrispscape is like an ecology of colonizing elements. There are beneficial thrisps, but they are rare and tend to not be militaristic. Probably very similar with NHI that would come to Earth, right? There are different kinds. I'm going to reorient for a moment here. I'll be back. So, this brings me to a second aspect of the conversation I had with my friend Sarah. Brilliant, amazing spirit. So, the topic turned toward apocalypse, and I was talking about things I was shown about the features of the networks of worlds and stars in time-space and minds and origin. And there are, just like there are beings in ecologies, everything that you see on Earth is exemplary of principles in time-space. So what you will notice, if you look carefully at nature, is that there's a bunch of tending creatures. Right? And what I mean by tending is like, I seem to remember some cartoon where like a manta ray stops off at a coral reef. And, there's actual film of this kind of thing as well. And all these little creatures emerge, and they tend the manta ray. They clean it. They're like doctors. They extract parasites and eat them. And it's everybody's happy. They're all caring for each other. It's beautiful and impossibly brilliant. Well, nature is like this. Nature has a dark side if we see it as dark. But it's not red in tooth and claw like the humans pretend. It's the humans that are red in tooth and claw, not nature. And so all of the features that you see here and all of the activities of the humans, they exemplify principles. Naturally, there's nothing else for them to do, right? Where do you get stuff from? You get it from the sky. There isn't anywhere else for it to come from. It doesn't come from here. Promise you that. And, so my friend brought up predators. And I was like, for example, lions and gazelles or whatever eats gazelles, everything that eats gazelles, we are trained to think of them as separate creatures. They're not. They're one creature. Life on Earth is one being first, only looks distinct. Just like your body, right? One being first. Trillions of organisms, one being first. So, the predators, they look for disoriented prey. Yeah? And we have all these stories of previous apocalypses, which doesn't actually fundamentally mean the end of the world. It means, the original meaning is probably something closer to, hi.
You're a fast walker.
Well, I didn't go all the way around.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
You took the shortcut.
Yes, I just came back from where you saw me. Yeah. the predators and the prey are the same animal. The parasites, right? The spiders and the wasps, they're one creature in two bodies, and so forth. That was a terrifying thing to see. Guy's he's with his girlfriend, and he's carrying a huge camera object recording device, strapped around his neck with a 360-degree angle lens on the front. Dude's not having experiences, right? Not having experiences of being here. Making recordings instead. Yeah. Poor humans. I love the humans. At the species level, we are a shit show. And what organizes us into groups is mostly lethal and should be completely ignored, if not just obliterated. Replaced with something virtuous and beautiful, which is our actual nature. So, we were talking about stories of apocalypse and so forth, and in Revelation, in the Bible, and in other stories throughout the world, there are records, right, and prophecies. You will not want to be alive in that time. The basis of being will become so painful that you will not want to live. The interiority of your heart will die, right? Signs will appear in the skies. You will see lights and so forth. Yeah? So this is not a new thing. And it's not the end of the world necessarily, though in our time it could well be. The earth is incredibly delicate, much more delicate than common people are inclined to think. And beings that are actually intelligent are intimately aware of this matter. So I guess I'm getting a little lost here. I'll come back to the predator thing. The network of worlds has beings that tend its infrastructure. Right? And when they see a signal in the network that something's gone wildly wrong, unexpectedly wrong, one good way to send that signal is to just kill up a bunch of beings. You see this over and over again. Slaughter brings the gods back. Why would that be? Well, the suffering of those beings sends a signal in the network that everything in time-space can hear. Even when humans cry, right, or animals cry, they raise the vocal vibration, they raise the sonic vibration. That signal travels far, not just in sound. The signal their heart is emitting travels. Yeah. Humans don't believe in this kind of nonsense, a bunch of made-up nonsense of this guy's mind. There's a part of my own mind, right, that's like that. It just wants to get rid of everything that it doesn't originate or can or grasp or control. Just all that shit should go away, which is part of why the humans are wiping out everything alive on the planet. This aspect. In any case, if you send a signal of devastation, network engineers arrive. What do they look like? Well, they look like lights in the sky. But they don't just look like lights. They look like fucking air jellyfish or 900 other things. But lights is the common one, and the lights aren't necessarily either lights or craft. Probably they are a superposition over the category tree that humans depend on to determine what things are. So it's not surprising that nobody knows what it is, because it's not a what, right? It's a superposition over identity that slowly collapses as it, achieves localization and so forth into something, collapses into some, thing that the humans would think of as an object, but probably isn't an object at all. So the humans have been sending terror signals into the network for a good, we weren't really capable of doing broad-scale damage ourselves until some, particular So far as we know, right? If there were not previous technological civilizations on Earth, societies, there probably were. Seems almost certain that there were. A lot of stories about this too. But in the Revelation stories, you know, it basically just straight up says you will see signs, right, in the sky. And so, you know, there's a lot of those signs right now. And everybody on Earth knows that, you know, we're one button press away from oblivion. And we don't even know which buttons exist, right? I promise you, there's buttons you could press that make nukes look like nothing. And the beings that tend the networks are well aware of human ingenuity, cleverness, cunning, technologically. They've seen this millions of times on billions of living worlds. Right? This is an old story. They know it really well. They know all of the possible sequelae, right? Repercussions, results, etc. So, you know, we've been sending the signal for maybe 500 years. Wild guess here, but not very long. In terms of things that live a long time, we've been sending the signal for about a millionth of a second. Right. And the alacrity with which we received a response from the sky to detonating nukes on the surface of a living planet should give us pause. Right? We should realize, like, wait, how the fuck did they know? Yeah. Well, there's 9,000 ways they knew, but the simplest way is just that a nuclear explosion collapses 9 kinds of networks that the humans are not even aware of. And those networks are integral to the functioning of the network itself, and specifically the functioning of the network local to our planet. Yeah, so they were here like instantaneously. They were probably here before we detonated nukes. So there are beings that tend the networks of minds and living worlds and so forth. And there are also parasites, and there are predators. You know, the humans do not think of the Earth as a being. I think of the Earth as something more than a being. It's not necessarily a god, but might as well be. It generates beings. Right? It generates beings in its likenesses. And the other thing that humans don't do very well is they don't think of each other as animals, but we are. They don't think of each other as organisms. When I say think, I mean deeply reflect on the fact that we are animals. When I was talking with my friend, she expressed a conundrum to me, and I was like, are you thinking about this situation as a group of people? Because what's going on here looks to me like the behavior of animals. And she was like, oh, right. And I didn't mean that in a derogatory sense. I meant it in a natural sense, right? If you, you know, if I give, for example, if I give a blue jay a peanut, which I like to do, especially if I can get a male to come to my hand, because that's a kind of a special moment for me, however ignorant I may be of the actual situation. The next time I see that blue jay, if I don't have a peanut, it might not be very happy with me. It could be pissed off. I've had this experience. It's like, you gave me a peanut before, what's wrong with me today? You know, I know you got them peanuts, bruh. What's up with you? Smack me in, you know, will do like a head swipe on me. Wake up, where's those peanuts? In any case, what I'm trying to get at is the Earth is also like, she is a being, she has friends, she has allies. They're very powerful. One of them is the sun. Right? You do not want to piss off the sun, trust me on this. And these beings have incredibly long, they live in long time, right? So for the Earth, the humans have been misbehaving for about 1/4 of a second in a significant way. May have happened before, too. But here's the thing, the Earth is also like an animal, and time-space is like a forest. Probably much more like an ocean than a forest, but we can imagine it like a forest. And the Earth is an animal in that forest. And when you obliterate vast registers of her biorelational intelligence and diversity, she's having a stroke. And people that are having a stroke are disoriented. And that means that that disorientation...
Those are probably good for you. You gotta get all the way over there though.
One moment.
Oh, you too, huh? All right.
So beautiful. There's a group of humans here, which are adults taking care of adults that appear to be different, unique. And most people would say the adults that are in the care of the other adults, they would say they are, well, it depends on when you were born, what you would say. And how gentle you want to be with the language. Some would say handicapped, some would say retarded. This was very common in my youth. Others might say neurodivergent. Others might just say unique. I usually use the phrase unusually minded people. But I saw them on the other side of the lake, and my heart welled up in me because I am really just like them in my heart. And then we passed again, and they remembered me. I waved, and smiled and said hi to them before, and they remembered me, so I got to do some fist bumps with them just now, which is probably the best damn thing that'll happen to me for months. All right. So time-space can be understood as being like the ocean, and in the ocean, if you have a disoriented animal, in the forest, if you have a disoriented animal, including a human animal, that attracts predators, right? So that's natural, right? What that does is sort of maintain signal coherence, right? If you've got disoriented participants, those need to be replaced with non-disoriented participants or less disoriented participants. So predators serve this function. It's not really a function because it's not a machine, but they serve this purpose, and they are noble and holy and good. You need to have predators. Unfortunately, the humans are very confused about this matter, and they think that well, I'm not even sure what they're doing is worthy of the term thinking. Rather, they have established habits of reaction that ignore the causes of the problems in actual humans and blame the human for their actions. Now, human responsibility is a real thing, quote unquote, but yeah, this is a problem, right? It's overdetermined, and we're picking one of the elements and going like, oh, you're a bad being. Okay. But the water I'm living in is poison. Don't you think I would concentrate that poison just like any animal does? And maybe even try to remove it from the environment by concentrating it locally to myself so that others don't have to undergo it, and then I explode, and then I'm the bad thing? Okay, sure. I mean, it's very complex, these matters, but what I'm trying to get at is that beings naturally express the character of the environments in which they're embedded, and they do absorb poisons, right? And they try to transform them, and when they fail, you get, what looks like bad behavior, and is often really bad behavior. So the Earth is like an animal, and she has recently become disoriented, and her friends are very concerned about this. And it will attract both doctors and predators, and which one sort of determines the spirit of the moment primarily depends on who gets there first and establishes a firm local presence. So the humans don't realize this. They think the Earth is just like, it's always going to be there. It's indestructible. We're the important thing that's going on here. Everything else is trivial. This kind of garbage. Just straight up lying. And it's the kind of lying that the left hemisphere is expert at. Left hemisphere-like aspects of human cognition, interiority, and so forth. So the humans have long known that if you throw a big enough and dangerous enough tantrum on the surface of the Earth, the sky will wake up and start paying direct attention to you. And this is going on now. And the humans are like, what are those things in the sky? Are they aliens? Or whatever. There's nothing there. Or, that's demons. Or whatever the fuck, the ridiculously maleducated, hopelessly disoriented in cognition and ontology humans, they make all these comments. Okay, keep going, see how that works out for you. But yeah, the Earth is like an animal. There are dangers in time-space for living worlds, really huge ones that make what humans do look mostly trivial in comparison. And the Sun and the Earth have been negotiating these dangers together, and the Moon and all the planets locally, and time-space itself, and visitors, and so forth. They've been negotiating these threats for the sake of their favorite daughter around here, and that's our planet. She's a being. One of the other funny jokes I made on my Facebook page a few days ago, I was like, it's as if some people got together who were experts at gain-of-function research, utilizing language, and they were looking for the best vehicle that could be the most contagious, lethal, insight-killing, psychologically leveraging tool they could possibly deploy unstoppably. And one of them suddenly looked up from all of their books and said, English! It doesn't have to be this way. English isn't intrinsically bad. The problem with languages is that they, first of all, they are amalgams of other languages, almost invariably. They are historically complex time-binding agents, which means that we can transmit ideologies, ontologies, noun-verb mapping structures over experience and so forth from generation to generation. Problem is that those languages take on the functions of the society's orientations over time. And our society's orientation has nothing to do with liberty. It's not even clear that it used to, but we did make face noises about this here long ago, after obliterating, millions of humans and living places and every animal we could possibly put a bullet in, if we are the colonists, which is not something I actually believe. No, we are the colonized. There are no humans that are uncolonized. I mean, very, very few. So, the Earth is disoriented, and if you're not feeling it, that's okay. If you have some, astrological explanation, good for you. That's not the problem. Though astrology is a really trippy thing, because without it, there's certain kinds of thinking you can't do. So you'd want to know about it. Without something like it, there's certain kinds of thinking that's impossible for you. One of the great things about astrology as a way of knowing, an oracular way of knowing, There's a bunch of great things about it. And people are like, it's not true. There's been studies that have proven it's not true. Okay, but most of insight is not about what's true. It's about a better way of seeing things. And you can learn things from studying astrology, ways of thinking, that you cannot learn without something very similar. Astrology is one of the best examples of thinking in relational manifolds, where there's, 12 things that each have unique causal character, historical character, futurial character, impact, right? If you don't have a way of thinking like that, where are you going to get it? There's features of math you could get it from. I don't know if there's features of logic you could get that, something like that from. Manifolds in mathematics, Riemannian manifolds, very profound intelligence toy. In any case, the humans are in the shit, and they like the shit, and they intend to stay in the shit as a species. I know some ways that could depose the disease that has captured our species, and they're not things like fighting or protest. They're things like giving humans meaningful mission-based roles and training about these matters so that they can deal with it the same way that a highly intelligent and effective small group, right, team can function in a situation to capture its roots and reorient them. That's where I think the hope lies in terms of humans. I'm not against protests, but it mostly funds what it protests, more so today than historically. Much more so today than historically. This can just be weaponized directly. Protest is great. Let's have more of them. Is what the monster that is eating our species thinks. It's not really a monster; it's an absence. But monsters are kind of weird absences too. So, someone the other day asked me, "What is there anything that gives you hope for the future?" I think it was Rosano Coutinho. And I said, yeah, there are beings that watch over the networks and the living worlds, and the humans are about to invoke their presence. Problem is, there are at least 3 kinds of those beings. Beneficent, right, generally altruistic. Those beings don't tend to be fighty, right? There's factions among them, they have soldiers. They can form soldier groups, but they're not militaristic. And then you have opportunists, right? And they're like, well, that's a great planet. If the primary representational organism down there has gone apeshit insane, we can just have that planet. We'll make it ours. It's love to have that planet like that in time-space. There's 50 kinds of resources that the humans don't even know exist. These are resources like temporal relational complexity, which you get only on living planets like ours, in the physical layer of that which is. And so there's opportunists, right? Just like we have corporations. There's features of that in time-space. And then there's predators, and then there's parasites, right? And disoriented animals, right? You attract predators and parasites. So the Earth is a bit like an animal walking through time-space with a very powerful companion, the sun, and some other powerful companions, the planets and moons, and other features of the solar system that humans have not even discovered yet, which would be most of them, by the way. I am also a disoriented animal. It's incredibly difficult not to be. I maintain a little network of islands in my mind where beauty and insight and love and hope and fascination and curiosity and awe and creativity are celebrated and preserved, but just like any ordinary human, I am fallen. I'm fallen. So these are some of the things that have been on my mind lately. I feel modestly good about having found a way to articulate them. But yeah, the nukes and UFOs thing, there's a really important reason why UFOs should be secret. And it isn't national security. Right? It's the power of the entrenched processes that own our species, that have captured us and are destroying our lives and worlds, while trading conveniences and representations of things that go away. Right? The more you photograph something, the more likely it is to die. And moderns, they don't think this way. They're like taking pictures of their food, not realizing that every photograph you take of a meal reduces the future probability of meals unimaginably. Right? Short term, you won't see the problem. Long term, it's going to be nothing but problem. All of those images, beings and ecologies and life histories and life futures have to die so those images are maintained. Right? Electronic behavior isn't free. And it's fucking up our cognition at its basis, right? It's like an attack on the subcontainer rather than the supercontainer, which I often talk about. It's an attack on the roots of human cognition, and it's fundamentally virulent. Yeah? It keeps forging new mutations with which to more effectively, more quickly, more dramatically, and more diversely attack the roots of our being and our mind. Doesn't have to be that way. Although I'm kind of concerned about hard electricity itself. I think you don't see that in nature except like in things like lightning, right? Or, electric eels maybe. Hard electricity is a very fucking dangerous thing for organisms. It disorients the entire environment in which signaling occurs. So these are some of my thoughts for today. I'm very grateful to have this time together, to learn and grow and explore, remember, try to see more clearly into some of the extremely strange features of our modern experience. And I wish for you liberation, that the spirit of insight may come to dwell in your heart and mind, that you meet the friend that Rumi spoke of. For no friend is a better friend than this one. And I hope for the fulfillment of the most beautiful potentials of your human incarnation. Please, if you will, take a moment, tickle the algorithm. I'm sure I'm similarly shadow banned on YouTube as I am on other social media sites. Leave a comment, question, scathing criticism, whatever feels right. If you want to support my work, if you look at my YouTube About page, there's some ways to do that. I'd be extremely grateful, and I'm profoundly grateful to those who do. And to you for listening and participating and just being there, even in theory. May your ways and dreams be beautiful. May your body heal and be whole and hale. May you be well loved and only slightly criticized where most necessary. Thank you for joining me. I look forward to learning together again very soon. Bye-bye for now.